Regina Bearswell, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Oviedo-Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce. This year, the Government Affairs Committee's mission, and I have two members, Chuck Drago and our chairman, Paul Sladek here, was just to inform our members, educate them on issues, as well as the public. And I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. I want to thank the Seminole Voice for sponsoring. And before we get into it, I'd like to ask Isaac to lead us in the pledge.
Hopefully everybody remembers this. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's forum, Isaac will be asking questions of Mr. Phil Kaprow and Commissioner Avery Smith. Both of them are running for the seat number 3 in Winter Springs. And they each will have 2 minutes to respond. They'll each be asked the same question. And Isaac is reserving the right to do follow-up questions at the end if there's time. We hope to be right on schedule. We have a timekeeper, and we hope to be done
8:30.
about 8:30. So, thank you very much.
All right, as I've already told both of you, at the end you will have a chance to give your stump speech, as it were. That's the why am I the best candidate and why should I be helping lead this city. But we will be starting with the school board, and we will be going all over the place. I hope you are mentally sharp. You both do have some law experience, I believe. Anyways, I'm going to start from the left. Ms. Smith, where do you stand on the school board's effort to raise taxes to keep Seminole County schools as one of the best in the state?
I actually believe that since that is not a city commission position, that I should refrain from having a public opinion on that. But just stating that, though, I do believe that our city has a strong partnership with the schools that are in our city, that we have an obligation to make sure that they have the resources that they need, and that we need to continue to work with them. But when it comes to a public vote, I don't believe that the commission should take an official position on that.
Mr. Kaprow.
I do believe that it's not appropriate for a commissioner or a candidate to take a position on a referendum. I will say, however, that I believe that commissioners have an obligation to be good advocates for their city to the school board. I think they have to build a solid relationship. And I looked to an example from last year with the stormwater tax that the school board decided they were not going to pay. And I think that both sides failed in that conversation. We need to build a strong relationship between the commission, the school board, and the parents in order to build a strong triumvirate, because the only people that suffer are our children.
Mr. Kaprow, I'm going to talk to you about the next question. In recent days in national newspapers, there have been articles of municipalities consolidating services to ensure better service and lower costs. Do you agree with this premise, and how successful has your consolidation been with the county?
As a city a few years ago, we lost our fire department to the county. And it was a tough loss for a lot of people. It was a very divisive issue. I would not want to see us consolidate our police force. I would not want to see us consolidate any other of our services unless we were not able to justify their independent existence anymore. That said, I think that the county does a great job with the fire department. It's the same people. It was a relatively seamless transition, but there was something lost in the heart of the city when we lost that fire department, and it hurt a lot of people from an emotional standpoint. That said, if it makes the most economic sense to go ahead and consolidate, then I would not leave any option off the table.
When it came to losing the fire department, that was a big loss, not only for the city, but it had a big impact to many of the Winter Springs taxpayers. Some taxpayers saw an increase in the bottom line by $2,000 in additional taxes instead of having to pay the fire tax. So our city had a deficit. It tried to find the best way within the city to do it, to shore it up, and it could not. So it did reach out to the county to form a partnership. I think that contract is going for 5 years. But right now, our police department is strong. We have the lowest number of officers per capita and what we spend on that per resident. We have the lowest crime rate. But right now, we have a police force that does the best job out of any of our surrounding communities, but we also provided the tools that it needs to keep our public safe. And right now, we have to continue to do that. There are no plans to consolidate with the county. And I would tell you that Chief Brunel is probably the best police chief that Winter Springs has ever had. So for consolidating services, I don't see that in the future for Winter Springs at this point. And we need to find ways to increase the revenue of our city to make sure that we continue to have the resources that we need without impacting homeowners by raising taxes.
Commissioner Smith. Next question, please define the meaning of the term rural boundary line, and do you agree with its purpose?
It really depends, because I will tell you that that term, depending on where you live in this country, is actually different terms. So it isn't necessarily, I would describe as a fixed message for us. The rural boundary line is an area that we are trying not to have any growth there. And I think for right now, I think it is a good idea. We have agreed not to have any development into that area, because we believe that we have to keep that open space, but I don't know that that anyone can promise you that it's going to last forever. But I think it's really important to have that now, where you have a stopgap between where development occurs and a green space, and then where there's homes and other residential areas.
Mr. Kaprow.
A rural boundary line is generally you asked for a definition, that's generally a constructed line somewhere on a plat that says that we are no longer going to have development from a municipality. No municipality is going to go into that area. I'm not certain that we actually have a rural boundary line. I know we have an area up by Lake Jessup and up by the Hammock where we have agreed we were not going to develop. And as far as how I think that works for me, I think that makes good sense for right now. Part of the reason why I live in Winter Springs and why many people live in Winter Springs is because it's a beautiful place. We call Seminole County Florida's natural choice. If we go ahead and develop every square inch of it, and not wisely, I might add, I think we take away from the esoteric and aesthetic value in the community.
All right. Question 4, we're going to start with you, Mr. Kaprow. What does Winter Springs do now to support local businesses, and what are your plans to enhance that support?
My answer would be not enough as far as what they're doing now. They have the Go Local program, which I think is good. They have a partnership with the Chamber, which I think is also good. But it's very hard for businesses or anybody else wanting to do any kind of development in Winter Springs to go through the permitting process. It's an extremely frustrating experience. We don't do enough to retain and attract businesses here. I was a business owner in Winter Springs. I know the complications that come with it. And we need to find ways to reach out to more small mom and pop businesses and incentivize them not only to come but also to stay. If we have opportunities for bigger businesses, we can look at that, but I don't really think that that's the identity of our community. I think our community is a small bedroom community, and again, that's why people chose to live here.
Commissioner Smith?
We have way too many regulations. We have too expensive of a process to get started, and it takes too long to get what you need to start up your business. So we have to improve the regulatory experience here, and there's a lot of unnecessary regulations that just need to go away. There's no reason, every time we add a new ordinance, a new law, a new permit, we are actually acting as an impediment to the marketplace. So one of the ways to improve the entrance into the market, which is promoting business, is to remove those impediments. When it comes to growth in our city, our demographics in Winter Springs, we have 36% of the people who live here hold at least a college degree or a master's degree. That's higher than the national average of 29%. So when it comes to a skilled workforce, we have quite a bit. So the businesses that we need to attract are not just mom and pop. You need to attract the kind of technology businesses that want the workforce that has those degrees in order to promote the businesses that come here. Secondly, from our workforce here, did you know 97% of the people who work in Winter Springs go someplace outside the city for that job? So by bringing in the kind of jobs that can benefit from our highly educated workforce, we can keep our residents within the city limits without them having to drive, so that we save them expense, we save them time, we save them gas money to bring them here. And when it comes to revenue, the kind of businesses that we need to attract, we have to know our tax base is not just ad valorem taxes that raise money. We make money on franchise fees for the telecommuting lines. We make money on the electrical services that businesses use. So when you talk about call centers and things like that, no smokestack, green kind of businesses, they use a lot of the services, and we make more money on franchise fee than we do on ad valorem taxes. So we can go after those kinds of businesses.
Well, that was a mouthful, but you get to speak again very quickly here. Let's see. Well, we've spoken about government business incentives, so we will skip that one. But how do you feel about the success of the Winter Springs Town Center? We've had businesses that have come and gone there, and we've even had some instances of businesses that have collided, ones that were too similar and therefore one had to go, that sort of situation. So what plans do you have to improve on the success of the town center? And what would you do to prevent any problems in the future?
Yeah, I don't think you can describe the town center as a success. I think the town center was built with the wrong vision. They built the businesses before they built the customers that would use the businesses, which is backwards when it comes to development. You don't build a business and then wait 10 years to have the residency and the occupancy to use those businesses, so we set them up for failure as a city. That was wrong. When it comes to the town center, we have to look at the town center code. We require them to build a second story that they don't get to use. So we've doubled the building cost for business, and they get half the use. That's crazy. Nobody has that kind of resource that they're willingly going to give away. So the ordinances and the regulations that were set up to build the town center were out of alignment with, I think, a good business sense. I mean, any business owner is not going to throw away money because somebody wants it to look like a particular design, and this city is requiring businesses to do that. Secondly, just to start up a business in there, and I've actually tracked down quite a few that used to be in there and went someplace else, we are too hard to do business. And I know that we brag as a city that we are becoming more business friendly. But when you go from horrible to less horrible, that's not much of an improvement. We need to look at who is number one, and we need to find out what they're doing in order to bring the businesses in. And right now, the town center has quite a ways to go, but I think a lot of that fault lies on the city for the regulatory requirements that we're putting on business owners. Even to upgrade, there's a business that is right next to, the one that rents the tents, right next to City Hall, and he would love to be able to build out, but they want him to build his business so that it looks like the buildings in the town center. The expense on that is enormous. So he can't expand his business like he wants to, so he's gonna sit there and do nothing. That means you don't hire the contractor, you don't hire the electrician, you don't hire the plumber, and we get nothing out of that because he's gonna sit still and do nothing.
Mr. Kaprow?
I too think that the Winter Springs Town Center has not had a great success, unless you're Publix or perhaps Tijuana Flats. But I don't think I would go as far as to say that the city set them up for failure. That would make it sound a lot like government built their business, and I know these business owners built their own business. I think that what we need to do is look at the big picture, and this was a 20-year plan originally. Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, we had a small developer that came in to build a town center, and the economy took a tank. It didn't work out the way that he had originally planned. I talked to a lot of voters and a lot of business people that have had the same problem. When you look at the original plan, it's supposed to be on all four corners, and it never happened. And it couldn't happen because the economy didn't work out. Now, we're starting to see more businesses come in. There's a new restaurant getting ready to open in the town center, and I think that that's fantastic. I think we need to find ways to encourage the town center to be successful. But ultimately, we're not the landlords of that property. We can't make the landlords do anything. My understanding is that negotiations with the landlords are sometimes a little bit tricky, that sometimes their expectations may be a little bit unreasonable. As a commission, we can certainly encourage them to try and help develop business, but we can't force them to do so. So I don't think that the town center has been a great success. I think we may have one of the few Wendy's franchises in the country that's ever shut down and left. And it's really sad. It's really sad because we could be so much more than what we are, but as a city, all we can do is lead the people to water. We can't make them drink.
All right, Mr. Kaprow. The city commission lowered the millage rate for the current year, and that's something the city's been very proud of. Do you agree with this action? Can you tell us what the millage rate is and where Winter Springs ranks in Seminole County based on the number?
The millage rate was reduced 0.002% this year at the same budget meeting where the city raised the utility water rates by more than 0.002%. So ultimately, the impact on the residents is that they're going to be paying more over the course of a fiscal year. That said, we do get to say that we have low taxes, and we do get to say that we have the lowest tax rate in the county. Do I support cutting taxes? Absolutely. I think we need to have as trim a budget as possible, as long as it makes sense. Do I think that means that we take 0.002 off and break our arms patting ourselves on the back? Maybe not.
Commissioner Smith?
I think any time a city can give the people back money that belongs to them, that's a good thing, whether it's 0.002% or more, because that means that we are returning money that really belongs in their pocket for them to spend, not for the city to spend for them. When it comes to public utilities and things like that, the city doesn't necessarily have a lot of control over the rates that is charged, because the rates are actually set by Tallahassee, not necessarily by the city. But when it comes to tax philosophy, the lower the tax base, the better it is for us. So when it comes to inviting a business in, we just talked about wanting businesses to come here. If you can lower the tax burden and you broaden the tax base, because right now we're 90% residential, we are 10% business, but by lowering that tax rate, inviting businesses to come, even if we just have a goal of increasing business presence by 10% so that we're 20% business down the road, we have more taxpayers. And when we have more taxpayers, there's more revenue coming into the city. Because right now, we keep only 14 cents out of every dollar that comes into the city. An entire city runs on that. The rest of it goes to schools and to the county. So if we can give money back, that is a good thing. Whether it's as small or as big as possible, the cities need to go that route. And other cities need to follow suit. It's not okay to keep spending money the way they want to, keep projects on the table when people are losing their income, you have hours being reduced, you have jobs that are going away. We have to be cognizant of that for them. So that's my answer.
Speaking of budget issues, Commissioner Smith, is the current Winter Springs budget lean enough, and if not, where else could costs be cut or efficiencies be improved?
Winter Springs implemented zero-based budgeting, which means every department has to go in and justify all its expenditures. What Winter Springs has not done is zero-based budgeting applying to its fees. So we don't know if there's any expenditures there to cut because it's never been analyzed that way. That's something that I've asked since I've been on the commission. So for example, we have people that, we have different fees for different kinds of projects, different permitting fees, but we hire people for that. How much are we really gaining in revenue when we have a cost associated with that fee? Nobody knows. So when it comes to, one of the things I would look at is I would implement the zero-based budgeting policy with fees, with our permitting process and licensing to see how much the city is actually gaining in revenue. I think they have to do that across the board.
Mr. Kaprow?
The zero-based budget concept is a fantastic one, and City Manager Kevin Smith is doing a great job working on trimming the budget. Do I think we're completely there? I don't think so. And part of the reason why is you can only take so many steps at one time. If you made too much change at one time, it would create upheaval and chaos, I think. So you have to take things in steps. And you have to look at the budget, which may be overwhelming to some because it's a pretty thick pack. But you need to rate it if you're a commissioner or if you're somebody that's interested in trimming down the budget, and really look line by line and see where we can cut, see where things can be justified. There's one reference in the budget, for example, to 4 notaries costing, budgeting, I believe it was $400 to get 4 notaries for new employees. It costs nowhere near $100 a person to get set up as a notary. It costs substantially less than that. So that's just one example of something I would go look at. When you look at the budget, incidentally, you will see in there that, going back to the utility rates for half a second, that increase came as a result of a report from a specialist that was hired by the city. That wasn't set by Tallahassee, that was set by these commissioners. So when we talk about increases in the budget or decreases in the budget, and we talk about zero-based budgeting, we really have to go line by line and not stop until we've gotten all the fat out of the budget.
Right. Continuing on the budget, as a city commissioner, how can you make the budget process more transparent for residents?
Who are you asking?
Mr. Kaprow.
I think the way you do it is you continue to attempt to disseminate information to the public. We used to have a newsletter that got mailed, it's now online, and I think that's understandable. We hold workshop meetings and we have commission meetings, and sometimes those commission meetings are less full than others. Candidly, I wish I could find a way to inspire more residents to be active in the city, and that's one of my hopes. Is as a commissioner, I think it's important to go out to those communities, not just when you're sticking signs in the yard and campaigning, but throughout your term, and talk to those people. Let them know what's going on. You are their representative. And as their representative, you have an obligation to keep a pulse on what the people are looking for and to bring that communication back. It's a two-way street. So I think you do it through more localized town halls that each commissioner perhaps should undertake as an obligation as part of their function.
I think the city actually does a pretty good job about being transparent, and we have our checkbook online. We have Kevin Smith, our manager, has made a point of putting as much information out there, even when it comes to expenditures, that is available, again, online. The workshops are always announced ahead of time so citizens can attend. It would be great, though, for the city, when it comes to budget cuts or looking at vendors, to let the people of Winter Springs know through either RFPs or RFIs that there is a contract coming up for bid, or would like someone to even on their own do a sole source request to provide services that may save us money. And we have a lot of talented people in our city, but a lot of them don't understand the government contracting end of it. So the city may be able to find a way to provide an informational session as to how a citizen, if they had either a vendor or a business that could provide a service to the city, to facilitate the contracting of those services to help us save money and give Winter Springs residents a chance to compete.
Changing things up a little bit, do you agree with the new city ordinance adding the words "In God We Trust" to the city motto?
That's why I voted in favor of it. Yes, I do. I believe when it comes to the requests by the residents, the amount of feedback that I've gotten since I've been meeting our residents at different events and going door to door has been unanimously in favor of it. So it was a great decision for the city. I appreciate our city attorney doing the legwork ahead of time to make sure that we were on solid ground, and I'm very proud of the city for adding that to the seal.
Mr. Kaprow.
I come from a family that is extremely religious. My father was a chaplain in the Navy for 20 years. I'm a big fan of God's, and I think that the use of the words "In God We Trust" shows an absolute level of patriotism that is important. I support conceptually the promotion of that patriotism and the affirmation of faith that is inherent in saying "In God We Trust." If anything, I would question the timing that the resolution was raised, and to suggest that I'm not sure that spending $1,000 on brass lettering to put in the chamber "In God We Trust" would be my highest priority as a commissioner, and to make line items to roll it out in future budgets. I'm not sure that that would be my highest priority either, but I certainly would not look to undo the work of the commission. I think that that there's nothing wrong with saying "In God We Trust," and I'm proud of my faith, and I'm proud of to support the patriotic sentiment that's behind it.
You just spoke about frivolous spending, Mr. Kaprow, and I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit fantastical. In a perfect world, the city of Winter Springs has unlimited funds. What would be your plans once elected?
Wow. If we had unlimited funds, I think the first thing we would do would be to eliminate all forms of taxes, let people keep the money in their pockets. I would expand our programming to every resident to meet each of their needs, because if we're talking in unlimited funds, then everybody gets whatever they want. The question's, as you said, fantastical. And so I'm not really sure how I would answer that, other than to say that I would probably bring back a city-funded fire department. I would give them whatever they needed. I would take care of the seniors. I would, get rid of any problems and no longer charge any kind of fees for anything. And I think it would be just a perfect utopia. And quite frankly, I think we would certainly expand our business base under those circumstances.
Understood. It's difficult to expand on that, but Commissioner Smith?
I'll give it a whirl. First of all, I would call it Christmas and tell everyone that they can have anything they want. So when it comes to no taxes, they can have no payments for utilities. They can have whatever they want. In fact, we would encourage everything from retail stores to business owners to come here and just give away whatever we have. So when it comes to an unlimited supply of money, I don't know necessarily that would encourage growth, but we certainly would be the most interesting city, I think, in Seminole County for starters. And secondly, when it comes to having an unlimited fund, I don't know how that would encourage people to come here, but I can tell you that we would have no empty houses in the city and no empty storefronts based on that philosophy. So when you can let me know when that's going to happen, Isaac, I would really appreciate it, because I'll be announcing it at one of the commission meetings.
Well, since we're near the end of this and I'm into follow-up questions now, I'm going to ask you one follow-up to that question.
Sure.
Would you keep the town center as it is, or as its original vision was, fully fulfilled, everything built out the way they said, or would you destroy it and have something else built in its spot?
Neither. I actually think we have to work with what we got. So one of the things that I would do is change the regulatory scheme that prohibits some of the costs that businesses are having. A lot of businesses have visions for their stores, like the McDonald's, that doesn't want to have to build the second story for it to upgrade. I think that we ought to be giving these business owners freedom to do what they want for their vision. And it should not be the job of the unlimited pocketbook of the city using that to beat into them what they wish to do. I think business owners are pretty smart about how they run their operations, and with an unlimited checkbook, there's certain things we can do, but we also have to get rid of the regulatory scheme. It's great, purse strings are a dangerous thing. We have a federal government that does that to us in our daily lives. They do that to us in our state. They control the purse strings so long as we do exactly what we want. But sometimes what they want us to do doesn't match up to our goals. So we have to be careful that even though we have this great pot of money, that we are not overstepping freedoms that are fundamental to America and to our city.
Mr. Kaprow, same follow-up. If you had the chance, would you give it the money to grow to fruition, or would you completely change it?
With the unlimited funds, you mean?
With the town center, yeah.
Well, I guess first I'd have to ask you a question, which is, are these unlimited funds borrowed from like China, like our federal government, or is it something we don't have to pay it back?
This is magical.
Okay, so if we don't have to pay it back, then my answer would be, I think I would like to see the town center fully developed as it originally envisioned. I would certainly want to bring the Wendy's back. I'm a big fan of Frosties. I would want to make sure that that the town center looks exactly as the developer originally would have wanted to envision it. Does that mean that I think the city would pay for that in that scenario? No, I don't think the city should pay to go ahead and build buildings for other people to take financial benefit from. But I think we can certainly find a way with an unlimited pool of money to make a very, very favorable investment in finishing off the town center, and I think I would like to see it finished at some point.
We're gonna go back to a follow-up from near the start of this. We were talking about consolidation of services. We had deficits that needed to be taken care of. But let's say that we have a crime going up situation, which is the case now, though that is arguable based on the type of crime that we're talking about. Would you avoid consolidation if we continue to have reduced city funds to pay for the police department?
I believe that Chief Brunel, when it comes to, would argue with you that crime rate is going up, for one. And secondly, I believe that right now we're not in a position to need to consolidate services for the police department. And I would not want to give the impression to voters that it's something we're actually considering. If there is a situation that comes up, like with the fire department and the pensions and the liabilities that were incurred with that, the city would have to take a look at that. But I can't tell you until there's a real situation, not a hypothetical. I think that would be unwise for me to make a comment on that before I'm actually presented with the facts. Right now, when the chief comes to the commission and needs something, he presents the case to us, we figure out what the cost is and find a way to make it happen within the constraints of the existing budget. And right now, we're able to do that. We hope, when the economic times get better, that we'll have more revenue, obviously, and we may get in a situation where we start hiring again because we have a need for that. But right now, we're working within the constraints we have, and so far, he's done a great job, and we owe a lot to him.
Mr. Kaprow, you spoke about preventing consolidation from happening with the police force or with other parts of the city, but I'd like to ask you for more specifics. How would you prevent that from happening?
Well, I think what we do is if we do our job as commissioners, we will make sure that the police force is properly funded. We will make sure that we are doing everything we can to appropriately attract an expanded tax base. Now, we can't force people to come, but we can do everything we can and certainly try. I think we will find, for my part, I can tell you that 1/5 of the next commission, as your next commissioner, would suggest that we would do I would vote against any type of consolidation unless we have trimmed every other possibility away. One of the reasons I'm running is because my father lives a half mile away from my house, both my parents. And I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And when I was a kid, I used to be able to ride around on my bike, and we didn't have cell phones, so my parents couldn't call me during the day. But it was safe, and they didn't have to worry about where I was. I want to make sure my kids can get on their bike and ride from my house to my parents' house, and me not have to worry about whether or not there's going to be a citizens action police alert that there are 1 or 2 children missing, God forbid. That is my nightmare. And so I will do anything I can to make sure that this city stays as safe as possible. And you talked about crime rates going up. I hear people say that sometimes, but I don't. That's not true in Winter Springs. Winter Springs has the lowest crime rate in the county. If you're making reference to the fact that the murder rate tripled this year, that was an anomaly. That wasn't something that happened, by anything other than random luck as to the location of the VFW. We have a phenomenal police force, and I think that since the 3 things that you do in a city are public safety, public works, and take care of the roads, public safety is number 1 in my mind, and we have to make sure that police force is maintained.
We had a couple of disparate arguments a little earlier between rural boundary lines and business development or attracting businesses to the city. Now, right along State Road 417, right at 434, we have talks of the technology corridor going in there. There are people that are talking about what could we do with it now. Of course, that's very close to where the rural boundary line is seen as in Winter Springs. Now, would you rather attract businesses there, or would you rather stay off of the backs of the people that fear that boundary line is going to encroach?
I think it depends on the type of business that's coming in. We have a GID, and that's the area that you're talking about. And there is an entire commission put forth to exploring how to develop technology west. we are very fortunate that we have a very good proximity to UCF and Research Park and all of those things. There's plenty of unleased space out there. So in the immediate future, if somebody came to us and wanted to develop it and they were willing to put the money into it, I wouldn't foreclose the possibility. But you drive down 434, you drive into Tuscola Office Park, you go through other parts of the city. You can go to the other half of this floor, and it's empty and unleased. So why would we look to develop and build out areas that right now keep the city beautiful until we've made sure that the areas that are empty are full?
Understood. Commissioner Smith, same question.
When it comes to the GID for that particular property, one of the things that the city is looking at is the prospective revenue that could bring by developing that, and it's been ranging from anywhere from 500, not revenue, but tax base, ranging anywhere from 500 million to 1.6 billion that would bring into the city for a tax base, and then we would draw revenue from that. So when it comes to developing that, you can still keep the rural boundary line because the GID doesn't talk about encroaching on that. It would not, in the development that I looked at on the land use map, it does not talk about encroaching on that. So I think the question is a little misleading. But when it comes to the kind of technology, just like you see at UCF, across from UCF, for many of you, you know there's a lot of simulation businesses that are there, defense industry businesses that go there, high rent area, but a great location for a lot of the big businesses. But those big businesses hire a lot of the mom and pop businesses that people have talked about wanting to bring to Winter Springs. When there's federal contracting, I mean, you have opportunities with the smaller businesses that are either 8A companies or minority owned or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses that have no home to go to. We can give them the home. They're in close proximity to the major contractors, and we should explore looking at that. And not only that, but those are the kinds of businesses that would use the fiber optics and the cable lines and the electricity, which would allow the city to draw a revenue source that would exceed the ad valorem tax base that we just talked about. So we have a possibility of getting that, and that would help to lower the millage rate for homeowners. So not only are we increasing revenue, but we're making it more affordable to live here, which is great not only for the businesses, but for the residents here, and you're giving them the jobs for the ones that have the college degrees or more advanced degrees or some college. You're giving them an opportunity to go. So absolutely, we need to look at that, but the rural boundary line for that green space is not something they're talking about building into, and they're gonna be respecting that.
Speaking about business development and the same area, we're at an event right now that has the names Oviedo-Winter Springs attached to it. Oviedo and Winter Springs are entwined in many ways, including the potential for business development in between the two cities. Now, of course, when the buck stops, you're going to get the tax revenue in your city and they're going to get it in theirs. But what would you do to help foster that kind of a relationship to mutually bring businesses in between the two cities?
Oviedo and Winter Springs are sister cities. Oviedo has had its success, though, with businesses between 417, where the Kohl's and some of the other stores are going up. They've done, I think, a very good job. But a lot of those technology jobs, there's no reason that Winter Springs cannot be involved with offering space or incentives for encouraging the people. And not only that, but it also has a educated population that those types of jobs are going to be available to even local residents that live in Oviedo. We want to keep the relationship between the two cities. We're not competitors. We should be partners, and I think this event is just one example of the partnership that we are providing.
Mr. Kaprow, same question.
Kohl's and the mall, well, Kohl's is not in the city of Oviedo, it's an unincorporated county. And that whole area over there is also an unincorporated county. But here's the thing about working together with Oviedo and Winter Springs. I've done so in my community service, and I would do so as a city commissioner. I recently finished as the president of the Oviedo-Winter Springs Optimist Club. When I took office, it was the Oviedo Optimist Club. It was one of the first things I did was change the name to the Oviedo-Winter Springs Optimist Club to more accurately reflect the population to which we were drawing from. I've been very active with the Oviedo-Winter Springs Chamber. We are twin cities. In fact, former Mayor Bush referred to this one time as, or more than one time, as Oviedo Springs. But when it came to time for business development and economic development, Oviedo had taken an economic development task force and started at the same time Winter Springs did. Winter Springs kind of stagnated, and Oviedo pushed forward. They're getting their Oviedo on the park. They're getting their downtown that they wanted. They've streamlined some of their processes much faster than we have. I think we need to recommit ourselves to working with Oviedo and further developing that relationship. And I'm happy to say that I have very solid ties with many of the commissioners and the mayor, and through my works with the Optimist Club, the police force over in Oviedo as well. And I think we need to encourage bilateral conversations between the cities and figure out how to bring people to not one, but both. And maybe that includes, there have been talks in the past about consolidating some events. Maybe we look at that. Maybe we look at ways to encourage people to think of it not as Oviedo and Winter Springs, or Winter Springs and Oviedo, but Oviedo-Winter Springs or Winter Springs-Oviedo, however the cards would fall. We are, and we should consider ourselves two separate independent municipalities, but think about us in the collective.
I'm going to get a little bit out of order here. I'm going to ask Commissioner Smith a question first, but it's only because it's a follow-up to something that she raised before. The fake parapet type buildings that we have in the second story of
Right.
the town center. That's something that Winter Park is tackling now to a different extent than they had originally envisioned. Winter Park and the Winter Park Village, they had designed it to be the ultimate multi-use area. There were going to be offices there so that people could work. They have restaurants there now, they have bars there, they have retail shops, they have a movie theater. But they were also supposed to have a proportionate amount of residents there. Right now, all that they have is 60 residences above the Cheesecake Factory, and that's it. All the rest of it is the fake parapet style, other than a few upstairs offices. Now, in the town center, it seems to be entirely those types of structures that you said were wasteful. Would you like to see a realistic live-work scenario in the town center, or is it okay that they just build apartments or homes or townhomes next door?
Well, right now, we really can't undo what's right there already. So no one can move into those second stories because those are basically designed for show but not for use.
Well, in terms of future construction, if that were possible.
Just like I told you before, Winter Springs designed it backwards. We asked businesses to come without having a customer base. Now we have a bunch of construction that is occurring around the town center that will draw the customers there. Eventually, we may have a need for residences that are above a business, but right now, we don't have it. We still have all this other space to fill and all other projects going on around us. So to tell you that it's something that we could take a look at if there's a need, but right now we don't have a need for that based on the current construction that's going on around the town center.
Mr. Kaprow?
Well, I don't know that my answer changes much from earlier. We're not the developer of the property. If a developer wants to go pour millions and millions of dollars into changing the construction, that's on them. There are townhomes. There are new single-family residences being built within walking distance of the town center. I've talked to some of those residents, and they love being able to walk to the town center. Do I think we need to change the way that the town center looks? Well, that's not really a city commission issue at this point. The certificate of occupancy has been issued, and they're off and running. There's very little we can do unless they come to us asking for new building permits. If that time were to come, we would have to address it at that time, but I don't foresee that as happening anytime in the near future.
Well, I'm talking about a hypothetical building situation in the future. Would you rather see a live-work where people are like that in the style of the Winter Park Village, or would you rather see it as it is now?
I think that I'm okay with it, quite frankly, either way. It's up to it's the developer's land. The developer's going to build the town center how they want to see it. There was an original set of plans. I think that if we go back and stick to it, that would be great. The vast majority of the residents in Winter Springs are not going to be moving into that area, regardless. If there was a live-work opportunity and people could take it, I think that by all means they should do so. I would love to see more activity there than just one or two businesses that are open past 9 o'clock. But Would I change it? I wouldn't force a change, no.
All right, we're going to be wrapping this stuff up pretty early. We're coming to the final question of the night, and this one hopefully is an easy one because you had a chance to rehearse it. I'm going to start with you first, Mr. Kaprow. What would make you the better commissioner?
I am one of you. I'm a business owner. I'm a resident in Winter Springs. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I am just like most of the voters that I've met while out on the streets knocking on doors. I have a story. I have my feelings about why I came to Winter Springs. And for me, as a resident of Seminole County for over 30 years, I came to Winter Springs because having grown up in Altamont Springs, when I came back from law school, I saw how much it changed. It became urban sprawl. It became a traffic nightmare. I don't want that for Winter Springs. I think it's kind of nice that 97% of our highly skilled workers go outside of the immediate area to go to their jobs, because when they come home to a quiet, peaceful neighborhood where crime is low, where families get to spend time together. I'm the best candidate for the city commission because I have a unique background of law, where I do corporate and business, real estate, and local government work. I have a background of working with organizations like the Chamber, where I've been a trustee and a member for many, many years. I've worked with the community service organizations, and I know how to go out and reach out to them to help support the city. Most importantly, I know my neighbors, and I have no problem going back out and talking to them. And I have met so many more of them on this journey that it has really been a pleasure. And I look forward to being able to spend many more years here in the city watching my family be raised as I raise my kids. And I look forward to helping the city and working for the residents as their next commissioner in making sure that we keep our taxes low, our utility rates low, and our city safe and beautiful. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Not only have I the experience of being a commissioner right now, but before I became a commissioner, I was involved in advocating with the city regarding some of the financing project that the city unwisely undertook with bonds, and just being able to question some of the approvals that were given because not all the facts were on the table at the time, and being able to show them how it should have been done. That's one of the reasons that I believe I was asked to put my name in the hat. But not only am I an experienced attorney, I'm also a successful one. I've also owned a small business that was successful. I didn't have to shut it down because of economic times. I'm also a caregiver for seniors. So when it comes to my mom, I took care of her. When it comes to my dad, right now he resides with me, I take care of him. There's a lot more to the city than just running a law practice. It's also understanding what the residents need, and that means all the residents. So when it comes to taxes, or the people that are here who have not necessarily the resources that we would like, we have to make sure we meet all their needs. That's what I do. I spent a successful practice not only as an attorney but as a consultant with the defense industry, helping businesses grow and make money. Took one business from $34 million to over $164 million in 8 years. I help businesses grow. I'm going to help the city grow and bring businesses here because I've done it. I know the defense industry, being married to a Marine with 30 years and being around the Marine Corps most of my life, and being the daughter of a Navy guy, that's second nature to me. So when it comes to who we talk to and how to talk to them, I don't think anybody in the city has ever had more of that background than me, and I want to use that to help the city because that's what I do. And the other part of that, when it comes to just being able to get along with people, I don't know how many of you know, but I'm one of 9 children. So when it comes to being, how to negotiate and how to get along with people, I had to negotiate with 11 people all the time. So when it comes to having dinner and they brought their friends over, I had 22 people around a dinner table on a regular basis. So that's one of the things that I do. I know how to negotiate. I know how to get things done. Even despite we have a federal government that doesn't, that's what I do. We find solutions and we can make this happen. We just need 4 more years to do it. Thank you.
Well, we're we're less than an hour into this, and I hope that we've learned a little bit more about both of you.
Does anybody in the audience want to ask a question?
Anybody have any extra questions they want to ask any of the candidates?
Good time to do it, because we have a couple minutes.
I do. Fluoride in the water. I heard you saw you were going about that. Can you tell me more?
Say that one more time.
The fluoride, you want to add fluoride to the water?
One of the things I said in my article in the Chronicle was that I am surprised that our city is one of the few that does not have fluorination in the water. When you have little kids, like I do, and you go to the pediatrician's office, they will tell you, oh, you live in Winter Springs? Well, we have to give you a special prescription for what they call fluoride, because there is no fluoride in the water. Fluorination of the water, from what I understand, is not a particularly expensive proposition. It's something I would look at as a city commissioner. It is a benefit to all people. We're not in the 1950s anymore. It's not a communist conspiracy by putting fluoride in the water. So we know it has health benefits. We know it makes it easier for children to grow strong teeth. We know it's better for adults to maintain their teeth. I'm not sure why we don't do it, and it is something I would look at as a commissioner.
Actually, I would not. The city of Winter Springs looked at fluoridating the water in 1999 when Paul Partico was mayor, and spent many months looking into it with studies, and found it's not something that we want. So we've already visited the issue once as a city. I wouldn't go back and look at it, but there's more to that. I don't know how many of you know who the 2000 Nobel Prize winner for medicine was, but it's a guy by the name of Dr. Arvid Carlson, and he is advocating to remove fluoridation from the water because he sees it as a health risk. The American Dental Association, just a few years ago, does not recommend fluoridated water for any child under the age of 8, for anybody with diabetes, for any elderly person with a compromised immune system, because it causes fluorosis, it causes different type of health effects. So I don't think it's up to us, because fluoride is a prescription, as Phil just talked about. I don't think we should be telling our neighbors what drugs to take, and I think it's really up to the residents to decide what they need. But fluoridating communities here in the U.S. and around the world versus ones that don't fluoridate their water have the same cavity rates. So when it comes to the benefit of that, I don't think there is. But more importantly, we have a $7 million unfunded pension liability. Even a small amount of money we have to expend to fluoridate the water is not something I'd spend my money on in these economic times. So no, I would not.
Any other questions?
What steps would you take to make Winter Springs municipal buildings greener, put energy conservation measures in? Have any studies been done, and what is being looked at this point?
Let's start with you, Ms. Smith.
Right now, when it comes to the greening up of the city, we are, I wouldn't say, I mean, they're taking steps from the standpoint, they're working within the budgets that they have, but when you green up a building, there's actually an expenditure involved in that, and I don't think right now the city is in a position to expend any extra money. There are certain steps that it can take. Right now, like with the wireless and things like that, it's trying to do. It doesn't need the cable lines like it used to do. But right now, to green up the building any more than it is, I don't know that we have the resources to go that route at this point.
Mr. Kaprow?
I would look to see if there's any grants available, on many aspects. There are all kinds of green dollars out and available these days. And if there was any that was available that we would qualify for as a city, if it made sense to pursue it, I would certainly look to pursue it. Personally, I'm a big fan of xeriscaping, which is a method of landscaping that reduces the overall environmental impact in the area. If it made sense to do that, I would look at that. I wouldn't take options off the table. Again, you can't spend more than what you have, and so we would have to work within the financial constraints of what was available. But I certainly wouldn't be looking to not find ways to reduce money. If there's a way to reduce money by going green, I would certainly be all about pursuing.
Any others?
I work with a lot of groups that seek to honor our veterans. And so I'm just wondering, that hasn't come up, but I know you all look at not just the individuals in the community, but the different groups we have. And so I'm just wondering, knowing that we have a lot of veterans that live in Winter Springs, and that there are so many of us that appreciate that we have a terrific memorial downtown, and that the city is so inclined to participate in those things. But if you're to be elected, do you have veterans in your plans at all during your term of office?
Mr. Kaprow?
Well, I'm not really sure I understand what you mean by, do I have veterans in my plans? I will tell you that I was involved in the development of the Veterans Memorial we have. I was active at that time with the Rotary Club of Winter Springs, which was heavily involved in building it. I will tell you that I was just out there looking at the names this past weekend. I am proud that my father is a 20-year veteran of the Navy, and his name is on that plaque. As far as I know, he is the only military man related to a candidate whose name is on those plaques out there. I believe in supporting the veterans. I believe in taking care of people that go out and fight to serve our country, because I am always reminded that freedom is not free. I support an organization called the Yellow Ribbon Fund that's in Bethesda, Maryland. They were associated with Walter Reed. My father at one point had to spend a substantial amount of time there, and I saw and spoke with those veterans when they came back. Locally, I believe that we need to respect and support those veterans that we have here. And to the extent that we have any veterans out here in the crowd, thank you for your service. I appreciate everything you have done, and by all means, if there's something as a city that veterans think we're not doing, I would certainly look to step that up and try to incorporate that into our plans.
Commissioner Smith?
Actually, there's quite a bit that I do. Being the wife of a retired Marine and being involved with the Marine Corps most of my life, that's one of the things that I do. So I'm actually working with a national company. It's a foundation. It's nonprofit. It's looking at Winter Springs to do training classes for veterans that would employ them in the hospitality industry. And they're looking for facilities that they could set up their training, because they actually train the veterans and employ them right within their hospitality hotels. Secondly, I also think that Winter Springs can set up training and development classes. There's a lot of veterans in our community that have no idea how to set up a business. They have no idea what SBA offers. We have not only with Seminole College, but with Orlando, that they would allow us to have training classes right here in our city that would walk them through the steps of how to contract, not only with the federal government, but to contract with commercial enterprises. We have a lot of vendors in Oviedo and Winter Springs that don't know how to look up on a website for the federal government to find out who's been awarded a contract, what services are being provided, what products are needed, that our businesses could offer their services, their supplies, their products to go after. So I want to teach them that. That would be something that the SBA actually does for free. We can give them an outlet by giving them a facility at the senior center or the community center, but teach them how to do business with the federal government and with commercial, the commercial side of it. You know, if they don't know how to do it, it doesn't help them if we don't let them have it. And we have tremendous free resources that we can get going and teach these people how to network and let their services be made available to these contract awardees.
Further question? In that case, I think we might be close to finishing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get cookies.
That's nice of me.
I just want to say thank you very much for coming this evening. And before I thank our candidates here, I just want you to know that we do have our Isaac Babcock has worked as a journalist in Seminole County for over 8 years. He's a graduate of UCF and has edited the Seminole Voice newspaper for the past 5 years, serving the Oviedo and Winter Springs area, and he is a recipient of 7 Florida Press Association Awards for his
Congratulations.
reporting. So Isaac, thank you for willing to step up and be the moderator, and also thank the Seminole Voice for sponsoring this. Mr. Kaprow, Commissioner Smith, thank you very much for taking time out. I understand that when it gets close to Election Day, you've done many of these, and so, Isaac, I think that's why we've kind of had such prepared candidates, is that they've been asked this quite a few times. So thank you very much for coming. And thank everyone, and yes, there's cookies back there.
And also remember, this will be on our podcast on the Chamber's website. So if you go to Oviedo-Wintersprings.org, tell your friends down at the bottom, there's a tab that says Chamber Talk. They'll be able to hear a podcast of this event if they weren't able to attend tonight. And we thank you for coming out. Have a great evening and look forward to you voting in November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
I appreciate you humoring the free form.
Do you?
Yeah.
Try to.